compelling us to look backwards until sometimes we trip, compelling us to look at the present with fear and apprehension. How history, our past, especially past failures, individually or collectively, can become a barrier to achievement or freedom. Our political history in Africa would appear dominated by wars, by famines, by coups d'etat, by corrupt governments and dictators, and failed or failing states. Our economic history would also largely be of large-scale poverty, infant mortality, maternal mortality, illiteracy, disease, and misery. So our history may seek to define our future in Africa, especially our expectations of the coming years. History of this bleak sort has a way of subduing our faith. It has a way of constricting our vision for our nation and for our society, and indeed for ourselves. In the same way, a history of personal failure can cripple our hope, can limit our vision. It can frighten us into a small perspective of life. Our family history, the misery and deprivations of our beginnings, the shame sometimes and the disgrace of the past, the spectacular failures of the past are the tyrannical weapons of history. And these weapons whip us in line when we're thinking big, cutting us down to size as our self-esteem rises. Our past is sometimes always just yelling at us, unworthy, 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 as we struggle to do right, to live right, and to live with dignity. But history, we must remember, is not only merely a record of the past, but it is the past. It is gone. Our future is not determined by history of the past, unless we allow it. The history of Africa does not determine its future. The days you live in are much greater and better than the past. "30 years ago, mobile phones didn't exist. To speak to people in another country, you queued up for hours in a public telephone exchange, waiting for your turn, if it ever came. Today, we can't imagine life without our smartphones and FaceTime and Skype. So today, we can collaborate across continents in seconds from anywhere in the world. Researches that took us months, and I can tell you this because I'm a professor. I spent many years researching. And researches that took months to do are only a Google search away within seconds today. Education that required us to leave towns and villages to schools far away and abroad now are available online. So when you leave here, you can continue whatever conversations you were having on WhatsApp or Instagram or iMessenger or whatever other form you choose without a break. We are today nearer defeating hunger and famine than ever before in human history. With improved seedlings and inputs and new farming practices, farmers can produce multiples of what they produced on the same acreage years ago. We are closer than ever before in discovering cures or palliatives to practically any disease. We can, with a bit more diligence in Africa, diligence in immunization, eradicate most of the causes of infant mortality. Already, we're living longer and more healthily than any time in human history. All the IQ tests, and when you do a progression over the years, show that current generations are smarter than the past. And so you guys are much smarter than us. And so, as President Obama said, we must always be suspicious of those who are always talking about the good old days. Today, the great days have come. As for our personal failures and shortcomings of the past, you are in good company. Everyone that has ever succeeded must have their own story of failures. their own personal failings and their shortcomings. Indeed, success is only success because you can compare it with failure. Permit me as I close to rework the thinking of Fulgham and make a few, in some cases, controversial statements. And I'd like you to remember them, if only to humor me in a few years if you find that they're not true. The first is that dreams pursued with single-mindedness are more powerful than facts. I want to repeat that. That dreams pursued with single-mindedness are more powerful than even facts. 2, that courage and persistence can triumph even over experience, no matter whose experience. Courage and persistence can triumph even over experience. The third is that hope and imagination are more potent than history. That hope and imagination are more potent than history. Because your history is not necessarily your destiny. Indeed, your history must not be your destiny. And so, let me wish that the years to come prove your vision and bring you, your nations, and our continent prosperity. Thank you very much.
Well, the round of applause belongs in the past. Can we now give one for the future to His Excellency? Thank you.